let's get started on Acme Solutions week 7. I think, as I mentioned, doing this about a year after we started this, just because there was not a lot of interest with COVID and all going on. So who am I? My intro, got 15 years managing multi-million-dollar projects for Fortune 50 companies, for government agencies, for nonprofits, for everything in between. I have extensive waterfall and agile background as a business analyst, as a PM, as a Scrum Master. I still work in the field. I'm one of those crazy people that I really love my job. Like, you know, how lots of times you hear lots of people talking about you know, they don't enjoy their job and they're trying to figure things out. I'm one of those crazy people that, you know, when people tell me that, I'm like, but I really love what I do. I love building systems. I love, you know, solving problems. And if you don't already know, I also train in this field for those who want to transition into the business analyst career. And then the way that I do teach is hands-on approach, which is how I've done this case study. It's not the textbook stuff. It's what I've done in my career and what I do still today is what I teach you guys. There's not one way to do any of this stuff. So there's lots of videos out there for many different approaches. It doesn't matter how you get to the end result in business analysis, as long as you're building systems that are going to meet the business need. You're talking to stakeholders, you're gathering their requirements, you're making sure that you're building a system for them and not something that, you know, either your tech leads want to build or in your head makes sense. The systems that you build, you are building IT systems. So the systems that you build need to service the business. Okay, so as long as you're doing that, it doesn't matter which approach you follow, it all works. Okay. And the case study approach, it's a hands-on approach. All the work, I don't try to do a lot of prep work for any of these sessions, just because I want you to know what thought process is going on in my head when I'm doing this, because the goal is for you to understand how I did this and to be able to replicate this either in a case study or for your job interview, or even if you're working as a business analyst. This is how you solve your problems. Not problems, but figure out what needs to happen next on your project. Okay. Pay attention and ask a lot of questions. Sometimes I fly through this stuff just because it comes second nature to me. I've been doing it for many, many years. So if you have questions, please, please, please stop me. Otherwise, I'll just continue to go on. The scenario for this case study, I know that we just, I received some content and then we just expanded on that. Let me just make sure I can read this. So Acme Solutions, again, you guys have to know that this is a made-up company. It's not a real company. We are just showcasing this to give you guys an understanding of how to do either case studies or, you know, again, in your real world scenario, this is what you would be doing on projects as well. So what is Acme Systems? It's a world leader in providing software for the hotel industry. Our customer, Bifold Hotels, has requested us to create a system which allows the following. It allows the cleaning staff, a person who has our app installed on their mobile app, cleaning staff visits locations assigned to him or her to clean the room. A supervisor is a person who verifies the work of a cleaning staff. Admin is a person who assigns location or room to cleaning staff and assign supervisor to rate the same. So it's an app basically for staff to provide their availability, for a supervisor to assign cleaning staff the rooms that they need to clean. And it's an admin that allows the cleaning staff and supervisor to rate the work that's been done. So if you ever are traveling and are in hotels, when you walk in, the rooms are very clean, right? So that's, through this case study, I've learned that's called deep cleaning. And then if you are staying for a couple of days, they'll go in and they'll make your bed and they'll take the towels. That's called irregular cleaning. So these are the things that are being assigned to our stakeholders, who are the cleaning staff, supervisors, and admins. So that's the goal of this app. Scenario, I'll just read this really quickly. Our requirement was the cleaning staff to start his shift, to log into the app. He then visits room location, which has been assigned to him by admin. He starts the timer while selecting the location. He does the cleaning and fills out a checklist with comments, if any. Once done, he submits the report and marks the task done, and so on. The supervisor visits the room assigned to him. He pulled, again, you guys, I just took what was given to me. This doesn't make grammatical sense. I didn't try to fix it. I just took the case study that was given to me. So I'll try to do the best I can. He pulled, I guess he had pulls up the details of his staff who cleaned the location. He or she verifies the work and assign and rate each item. Once done, he finally rates the work. So I guess the cleaning staff, they first come in, they go to the room assigned to them, they clean it, they leave comments, if any. Then the supervisor, once they're done, the supervisor goes in and makes sure that the work, rates the room that's been cleaned, yet whether it's good or if it needs more work. And then the admin allocates rooms locations to the cleaning staff, and then each cleaning staff and supervisor can service multiple locations / rooms. So it's a way to check how the cleaning staff did for the supervisor, and for the admin to allocate the rooms to cleaning staff and to the supervisor. So only the admin is allocating rooms to cleaning staff and the supervisors. And then we were supposed to write a SRS document with functional point and wireframe for a web application. In doing this case study, we follow the Agile approach. So we'll be doing user stories and like backlogs and product backlogs and stuff like that. So we were not gonna do a SRS documentation because we're following the Agile method to show you, all the moving pieces that are used in Agile to build systems and solutions, okay? Here's a case study for the framework that we used for the case study. I covered a lot of this in the previous weeks. So today we're going to be creating requirements for future state. We're going to be working on user stories and the acceptance criteria. Mostly I'm going to be focusing on user stories and the acceptance criteria because we've done a lot of these things already. And this is a good framework for you guys to use even when you're working as business analysts, as a framework and a checklist that you guys can follow when working in your day-to-day jobs as well, because these are typically the to do to successfully work on a project. Okay. Last week or the last time we did this, all of these things were done. I think week 6 we talked about we prioritized the product backlog, and we also then created a breakdown of items that existed in the backlog. Okay, so this is what we did as a breakdown. Let me just move this over a little bit. Oops. So one of the things of requirements was that we needed to build an app that should have been in the iOS platform as well as Android. And then a feature or epic was creating login screens, right? For staff, for supervisor, for admin and manager. And these are the items that you see below that we'll be working on in creating user stories for today. So let me pause there and see if you guys have any questions so far about what I've covered. Okay. So I think I covered this last time as well. This is the template that I like to use in creating user stories, right? As a user, I want some functionality so that I could achieve a desired result. For the user stories that I like to write, I want to give the acceptance criteria as part of the user story because it makes it very, very clear to the developer and QA folks on what it is that is the expected result. Sometimes when companies or people write user stories that's just one sentence, it becomes very, very hard for our developers to know when they can call that user story done because the expected result is not outlined. So in my projects and in my training and in my work that I do day to day, I make sure that not only am I giving everybody the user story, but I'm also writing the acceptance criteria because it makes the expected result a lot more clear if you're identifying the acceptance criteria as part of the user story. So the format that I like to use is given, when, then. So given that our users are taking some action, when that action happens, what is the desired result or outcome? Okay. So starting out, login screen for staff, I started to build this out as a template for you guys. And for the remaining things that were bolded over here, we'll create those user stories together. And that'll be what we work on today. For the following week, the next week, probably we won't have this session. The following week, we'll talk about backlog grooming and sprint planning. But for today, we're going to focus mostly just on writing user stories so that you guys get familiar with how to write user stories, and then also get practice with me in writing user stories. And you guys, this is the reason I do these live sessions is for them to be interactive. So I'm fully expecting you guys to help me write these user stories, okay? So if you're not going to participate, then maybe we won't finish all the user stories, okay? So here's one.
Sorry, before you continue, I had a question.
Sure.
What do we use to write user stories? Like, do we need particular tools, or we need Excel, Word?
Okay. So lots of companies use Jira to manage user stories, because you will have lots and lots of user stories that you need to kind of track, whether they're with your developer or QA folks. Companies that are not using Jira are putting their user stories in Excel as well. So you don't generally need a tool to write user stories. I think companies use either Jira or some other tool similar to Jira to track the progress of user stories, because you will have lots and lots of user stories for your projects.
And this is done as a team?
The textbook says that your product owner should be writing the user stories. In my experience, if there's a BA on the team, he or she will be writing user stories. If you have a Scrum Master, they will be writing user stories. So generally it is either the product owner, the BA, or the Scrum Master.
All right, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So this is a user story for login screen for staff. So it starts as a staff member, I want the ability to log in. Let me move this up. As a staff member, I want the ability to log into the app so that I can provide my availability. Given that I have successfully logged into the app, when I click on add availability button, then the app allows me to add my availability for the upcoming week. So you guys can see, if I had just left this as a staff member, I want the ability to log into the app so that I can provide my availability. It leaves it very open-ended for our developers as well as our QA folks to, interpret what functionality could mark this as done, right? There's a big, there's lots of conversations around what do you call done in the Agile environment. And if we were to just leave this just as a user story, it would become very, very difficult, because the definition of done for me as a Scrum Master or product owner may be very different than what my developer might have thought the definition of done is. But when we do give more details in the acceptance criteria as part of our user story, it makes it very, very clear for our developer to know that there needs to be an add availability button somewhere, right? And then when they click on that, it allows our users to add, give them a table where they can add, if they're available on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday for the upcoming week. Does that make sense, you guys?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. You guys ready to participate? So now this is not the only one user story that we'll have for the login screen, depending on what functionality we want on the login screen for our staff, right? So add availability is one. What else should our login screen have for the staff? And you guys, because this is a made up system, made up case study, let me know what you guys think we should also add in the login screen for the staff.
Should we have a change password button or forgot password?
Sure. How do I do this? Let me make another copy of this. I'll move this to the side. So here we'll say login screen for staff. Here we'll say forgot password. So as a staff member, I want the ability to log into the app so that I can provide my ability given. Okay, so as a staff, I want the ability to so that I can given that I have and I click on so when I click on forgot password, then allow provided another screen to enter. Yes. Okay. So as a staff member, I want the ability to click forgot password so that I can update my password if needed. Given that I have forgotten my password, when I click forgot password button, then I'm provided another screen to enter my email address to send me a verification link to update. Link to update my password. Okay. Sounds good? What else do you think we should add for our login screen for staff?
In the product backlog, it says login for supervisor, login for admin, and login for cleaning staff.
Yes.
So we should have different login selection. I don't know how to say that.
Yeah. So generally when you're building screens, right, for staff or so the login process will be the same, but the landing page, like where we land staff. So after they've logged in, where staff, the screens that staff see and the supervisor see and manager or admin see are probably going to be very different, right? So when we talk about here, so the login screens, right? This is functionality to just let them log in, and maybe maybe we should have done registration instead of login, right? Oh no, I think we have that already. So maybe I wasn't thinking straight. So maybe we just need to do user stories for registration and then landing pages, because login assumes it's the same thing, right? Yes, do you guys agree?
Registration is only once, right? I mean, as a new hire or something. Whereas login, you might need to log in every day you come for your schedule shift.
So, but let's talk about how should staff register for an app that's like they're an employee, right? So how do they register the first time that they need to go in? How does that functionality need to work? Let's look at the workflow diagrams because you guys, I've done this a long time ago, so I don't really remember how we talked about having this work. So our as is, this is where we talked about how they do the work. So they go in and they clean. So this is all paper-based here. To be workflows, they admin or supervisor to assign staff to cleaning room. But we didn't do any workflow diagrams. 5 or less rooms, type of cleaning, 1 deep cleaning, daily cleaning. So we start here. This is a little small. I don't think we ever created workflow diagrams on how people would access or have availability to the app. Okay, let's go back. What you're saying, Sheetal, is that we should have login screens?
Yeah, because once I'm registered as a staff, then I need to just log in into the system when it's my scheduled shift, right? Just to.
But, you know, login, so register should be first, right? That's where I was going.
Yeah, that's what I was also thinking, that first time user, I just need to register myself.
Yeah.
And from then on, I just have to log in.
Okay, that makes sense. So let's talk about registration user stories first. So I'll just go down here. Okay, let me copy the format. Okay, so how should we register as a staff? So as a staff member, I want to register. So that I can provide my ability and understand for cleaning rooms, right? Now, want to register on the app, given that so here's, I think, where I was going about us not defining how does staff get to register. So let me stop my screen and maybe we create like a small workflow diagram to understand how that should work. Give me 1 second. Let me pull up draw.io. As you guys, if you are working with me or have been watching lots of the trainings that I do, I do a lot of things in workflow diagrams first, and then I write user stories because it helps me figure out the end-to-end solution that we need to have. So let me share my screen again. So how should we allow somebody to register on the app? So let's say that I am a new employee, I'm a new cleaning staff member for Acme Solutions or for hotels, right? So what should happen for me to get access to this app that they're using for my location? So let's say I start my new job as cleaning staff. So maybe what needs to happen is they need to tell me to download app on iOS or Android, right? Then they Byford Hotels provides me with my employee ID. And when I first download the app, and I'm making this up. So if you have better suggestions on how to tell people or new staff to log in, please by means tell me. And like I said, this is a case study. We don't have a stakeholder. We don't have anybody who can give us direction. So I'm just totally making this up. Do we have comments? Okay, no. So as a new, I start my job as a cleaning staff. I download the app. They tell me to download the app. Then they provide me with employee ID. So when I download the app on iOS or Android, I'm prompted to put in first time when I log in, put in my and then when I put in my employee ID, now I'm given a chance to register. Okay, so here, there should probably be a check to see if I'm a new staff member. And if I am a new staff member, then they should allow me to register on the app. And if I'm not a new staff member, then they should just continue. Okay. Does this make sense, you guys?
Yep.
Okay. And then this is where our registration process ends. I was struggling a little bit because we didn't know what the process needed to look like earlier. Okay, now we can go back and finish our registration user stories. So, okay, as a staff member, I want to register on the app so I can provide my availability and understand my assignments for cleaning rooms. Given that there's some background noise, so if you don't have questions, please put yourself on mute. So given that I have been this one probably needs more user stories to finish. Then I am prompted start the registry. Does that make sense? So I said, as a staff member, I want to register on the app, so I provide my availability, my assignments for cleaning rooms. Given that I've provided my new employee ID, given that I have added, given that I have provided my new employee ID by Ford. When I download the app and enter my employee ID, then I'm prompted to start the registration process as a new employee. So what this user story tells me is that we need to, the prerequisite for this user story to work is we need to provide employee ID. So there's an input that's needed when somebody first logs into the app, which is their employee ID. And maybe that's what we make as an input for every time staff logs in, is they always need to provide their employee ID first, and then the system recognizes whether they're a new employee or whether they're a returning employee. And if they're a returning employee, they just route them to the login screens versus the registration screens, right? And it may be a poor design, but that's all I can come up with at this point in time. So with that user story, we've covered this functionality, and so routing them to registration screens. Who's lost? Are you guys lost?
No, I think that sounds right.
It sounds right. Okay. So now we will write a user story for registration screens. How's everybody else doing? You guys are good?
Sarabjit, I have a question.
Sure.
So this mobile app can also help the managers to track the, let's say, the track time of the work or effort done, right?
Yeah.
At the end of the day, when they pull up a report, they get a consolidated report, right?
Yes.
Okay, just want to confirm. Yeah, thanks.
Okay. So we just, oops, did I think I just deleted the wrong screens. Okay. I just titled it wrong, so I will move this over. So this is for registration. I think this is gonna be, no. So going back to my workflow diagram, what items should we ask our staff to provide during registration? So maybe phone number, right? What else should be part of the registration process for us? What things should we ask our staff members to provide? And again, you guys, this is a land of make believe, so just anything. So name,
Email address.
and password, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So now this is part of our registration process. As you guys, I said that I don't do a lot of prep work. So if I had done prep work, I would have known this. But I don't want to do prep work because I want you guys to understand like the thought process that goes into this. So that's why it's taking a little while to figure this out, and we'll just get through it. Okay. As a staff member, I want to provide, I want to register on the app. So we could leave this here, given that I have and provided my employee ID. When I click on, given that I have downloaded the app and provided my employee ID, given that I've downloaded, then I'm prompted to provide the following items for registration. Password. And what was the fourth one? Phone number. Oops.
Email, I think.
Hold on. I lost my PowerPoint. 1 second, you guys.
Sarabjit,
Yes,
in the meanwhile, can I ask for a question on password?
sure.
So for, should we write a user story to create a password?
Yes. These are just like a way for us to know like what items need to be part of the registration. But we will add a user story to like define like what the security thing should be, like, you know, the alphanumeric and stuff, right?
Yeah, okay.
So name, phone number, password. What was the third one?
Email.
Email. Then I'm prompted to provide the following items for registration. So now for the name, I don't think it matters because everything is tied to their employee ID, right? So name, I don't think we need to have a particular format, phone numbers. We should probably do some validation to make sure that they're providing like an area code, if in the United States, area code, and like the 7 digits. Password, we should do validation on like the alphanumeric, whatever the requirements may be, and then the email address, probably just to make sure that they have the at sign. So those are all user stories that we could add for these specific items, right? Do you guys want to write user stories for those items? I generally try to keep these training sessions half an hour because that's the attention span generally for training videos. So we could move on and create user stories for one of the other screens, or we can dive deep into like, you know, creating user stories for email validation or password requirements and such. What would you like to do? Any thoughts?
We can do the user stories ourselves.
Yeah, you guys could do the user stories yourself and post them in the group, and I can provide feedback.
Well, we'll need the, can I get the format of your user stories?
Yeah, I will post post these slides in our group.
Okay.
Yeah. So you guys want to do that? Do you want to continue writing the user story, the rest of the user stories? And as you guys saw, right, we started with one page and we have lots of different aspects for one thing. For even for the login screen, we have to think about everything that we want and even how the functionality should work. And that's how we write user stories. We don't just have like things on the product backlog and we just continue to write user stories. We have to know what how the functionality should work, right? Like I didn't know how to get people to download and register, so we had to think about what the process should look like on the back end and then write user stories based on that. So there's you know, you may have to do some of those items for the other screens as well. So for example, for landing pages, right? What a supervisor should see when they log in is going to be very different than what an admin and manager gets to see versus what the staff should be seeing on their landing page and things that they're able to do, right? Registration will be the same for supervisor, admin, and staff as well. All the same screens, yes. So registration should be the same. But after registration, the landing pages and the functionalities that they have access to will all be very different. We generally do, even though registration is the same, we generally do write user stories because it's still work. Even though the registration process is the same, we have to create those roles differently on the back end in our database. So therefore, we still have to write user stories for each of the roles because they have to be identified differently on the back end in the database.
Sarabjit, is it possible to show one more time on the password, like functionality of the password? For example, there is a functionality for forgot password. Then there is a registration of a password or creating of a password. And then the criteria. Can you show one example?
So for creating password?
Yeah.
Okay. There's a comment. Can we add role or title to, yeah. It register as a staff. Is that what you meant when creating a role? There was a question in the comments and I'm not sure I understood the question. So if you could either rephrase or let me know what you meant by that.
Okay, hello. What I was saying is because you were talking about us having different login or registration page screens for different roles. Yeah. So just to have that distinction, can we just have the role or title of the person actually registering, so that we would know the particular landing page that will be shown on everybody's page? If that makes sense.
I'm sorry, you were breaking up a little bit. What is the question again? I'm sorry.
I was saying that can we have the role and title? The reason why I said it is you were saying that we'd have different registration screens for different roles or titles. Yeah. So at the back end, it can then, distinguish who is a staff or an admin or something. Yeah.
Okay. Agreed. Is there anything that you want me to add differently on here?
No. I was just saying part of the registration details should be role or title. I don't know which one.
Yeah. So that's register as a staff. So that's how we're even in the user stories, it mentions the role.
Yeah, not that one. I'm talking about the following items for registration. Where we have the name, the phone number, email address, and the like. Yeah.
Okay, this one also is for the staff member.
Yeah, I'm talking about the acceptance criteria.
Registration for staff. Okay, over here. Like this?
No. Part of the listed items. Because we have the name, the phone number.
Okay, name of staff. Okay, like this?
No. No.
Then what?
I mean, the name, the phone number, the password, the email address, and the role of the person registering.
Oh, okay. No, I don't think we need to define that because like part of the employee ID will tell us what they are. The reason why we need to have different user stories is for our developers to know that there are different roles that need to be registered on the app. So when they're registering, they're coming in based on the employee ID, we should know like which role they are. So we don't need, because let's say if I'm coming in as staff and I put myself as the admin or the supervisor, the system's going to know that I'm not an admin or a supervisor, right?
Okay. Yeah,
it's not something that we want to prompt our users to put in their role.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. So create password. So we'll do this will be our last user story, and then the rest of them I'll post this PowerPoint in our group. You guys are more than welcome to write these user stories, post them in the group, and I'll be able to give you guys feedback on the user stories. Okay. Okay. So now create password. Now this is this user story I'm going to write from an admin standpoint or yeah, maybe admin, because from admin standpoint, I want the password to be robust, right? The staff doesn't care, the supervisor doesn't care. Should we have admin or some other role? As an app owner or something. We're just making this up. As an app owner, I want users, app users to have a robust password so that I can protect the data in the app and users from security attacks. I don't know, just making this up. Okay. given that users are users have downloaded the app when users, now this could be staff, admin, supervisor, whatever role we're talking about, when users create a password, then users are prompted So here we can list what those requirements we want to be listed on the screen, right? So what is it generally, right? One uppercase,
One special character.
one number,
10 characters.
right? And a total of 8. Total length of So this is what this is going to do is it's going to tell our developers what requirements need to be published on the app, and then it's also going to restrict, check on the back end when people are creating their password, what things are required for them to move on. So if they don't enter these items, then they won't be able to move on to the next phase of going on and logging into the app. Does that make sense?
So actually there are 4 users now, right? The staff, the supervisor, the manager, and there is someone at the back end who creates this.
Yes. You're right. I'm having issues with my Zoom. Can you guys see me?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, Anusha, you're right. There are 4 users. Because I didn't want to write this user story from an admin standpoint or staff or supervisor. It should be somebody different who's creating the security, maybe it is admin. I don't know. Again, as I said, this is a user story. So we really don't have stakeholders to tell us who should be defining these requirements. But these are things that we're defining and writing user stories, just so you guys get the practice and know how to do this.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah. So if we had stakeholders or like somebody, we'd say who, is defining all of this. And maybe it is the admin. I just don't know. Maybe if it's the hotel, Byford Hotels, right? So maybe we could put that as because it's important to us that we, keep the security and data intact for our users. So as Byford Hotels, who is creating this app, I want the app to have a password so that it can protect the data in the app and the users from security attacks. So maybe that's.
Sorry. So in other words, can I make a RASI metrics or something to understand how many users or how many are responsible for certain activities? Should I do that at any point in requirement gathering? Where would I do it?
We did our use case diagram, from when we did our use case diagram, like I think in earlier weeks, we said that cleaning staff, supervisor, admin, or manager are the actors. Reservation was like a secondary actor, but in defining this, maybe it is the admin that sets the criteria, but in a real situation, you would have stakeholders that would identify all the users. from the requirements that we were given, these are the only actors that active, and even secondary that we thought, would be using this tool or the system.
Okay, got it.
So maybe to your point, maybe we should just make it as admin so that we don't create another user. Now we only have 3. Are you happy? Okay, guys, I think this is it for this week. This week was mostly focused on writing user stories, and I think we wrote plenty of them. There's still a lot more to do. User stories are fun, but they do require practice. So the more you can practice, the better you guys will get in writing user stories. Speaker view. Okay. There's lots of user stories to write. Go ahead and practice, and I will give you guys feedback as time permits. Any questions before we end for the day?
We should just use product backlog and start writing from that, right?
Yes.
One item at a time, or
Yes. And as we did, sometimes you'll have to go back and write user story, workflow diagrams to make sure that you're writing a user story that makes sense, right? As we did in registration, we had to go back and understand how should somebody be registered on the app? What should that process look like? So again, this is land of make believe. This is a great way for you guys to practice and think about, you're building applications, right? So it's a great way for you to think about what data do we need for us to continue? And once you create those workflow diagrams, then you'll have an easier time writing those user stories versus just writing user stories from scratch. Okay. All right, guys. Thank you so much.